Guys, it's over. The age of Moist Critical's reign on YouTube might just be done. It seems as though Moist Critical is taking a little break from the internet. I doubt it's actually a break. I do think that he's probably going to still upload on his main channel, but on his Patreon, where the official podcast is, a lot of other podcasts that are run by him, Jackson, Andrew, and a bunch of other people as well, it was announced that he is taking a bit of a break from the internet, or at least limiting his internet access. Now, why is this, you might ask? Well, a couple of days ago, Moist Critical did a debate with Sneako, which kind of ended pretty terribly for Moist Critical. He looked really bad doing it, and a lot of fans are questioning whether or not that is the reason why Moist Critical is leaving. In the initial screenshot, it says, "Goodbye, Charlie. Hey everyone, effective immediately, Charlie has made the decision to leave both the official podcast and the Red Thread. He wants to go on an indefinite hiatus to scale back his time spent on the internet. We obviously wish him the best, for everyone to respect his decision, and for all to know that the show will always be open for him to drop by and talk shop should he wish to return. The official podcast, Red Thread, and Criminally Stupid are not going anywhere in light of this announcement," which is pretty sad news. I feel like a lot of people got into these podcasts mostly for Charlie, so it's a bit sad to see him go. Now, you guys may not know this, but I'm actually a pretty big fan of the guy. I do like his content a lot. He's a genuinely funny dude. Like, everything he says is pretty funny. Like, he's always come across as that way, and that eventually made me get into the official podcast. So him not being there is definitely, like, it does suck. It does take away like half of why I watch the podcast anyway. But with that said, I wanted to take a look at the Sneako and Moist Critical debate because I have yet to actually get the chance to watch it. So I want to go through that with you guys today, react to it, and see just what is inside it that made Moist Critical leave. Obviously, I think it's the reaction to the debate that made Moist Critical get a little sick of the internet, but I want to see what inside was so bad.
Yeah, so let's talk about what we came to talk about.
Yeah, man. So with all of what's going on here, why are you so insistent on like the age of consent being like unreasonable? Or at least that's the impression I and most people gather from the way you speak about it.
That's a valid question, and I want to first ask, like, what's your issue with my opinion on the age of consent, age of marriage?
Because I feel like age of consent should just be an accepted number, and I think the accepted one is 18. Like, regardless of where you talk about in the world, I feel like once you start talking about someone under 18, you're basically just talking like a predator. Like, I feel like 18 is a pretty well-established number for most sensible people. At 18, you're going to college, you're living your own life now, you're outside of your family nest. Anything under that, you're still a kid.
Okay. It's not 18 in most of the United States where we both live, right?
Yeah, but that refers to like Romeo and Juliet laws, where if you're like 19 and with a 16-year-old, it's not technically illegal, but you're not a 19-year-old, right? So why would you be arguing for like a 16, you know?
First off, I'm not arguing to lower the age of consent. I don't believe in the age of consent. We can get there. I want to establish some terms first.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, it's not even just with Romeo and Juliet laws. There's a lot of states where it's 16 regardless of Romeo and Juliet. And then you go to Europe, most countries are 16. Japan, I think they just changed it. It was like 13 or 14, and now it's 16. Brazil, it's 14. I saw that from a Nelk Boys video. They were joking around about how they should, like, when in Rome, they're in Brazil, so they might as well sleep with a 14-year-old.
Ah, yes, Sneako's classic "I don't believe in the age of consent" catchphrase. Moist Critical is going to have a hard time arguing with Sneako because at this point in Sneako's career, he is basically just not open to anything. He is a closed book, right? Like, he's super religious. You know, I guess he firmly believes in his religion, so I just don't think that really anything that Moist Critical says is going to get through to him. And it's so weird, and it sucks because throughout this entire debate, like, Moist Critical is struggling, but like, he's struggling against somebody who is arguing against the age of consent, like against an actual just like clear-cut number of what should be the age of consent, right? Like, that's so weird. Like, throughout this entire thing, they're talking about sleeping with very young people. Sneako is not Moist Critical, but Sneako is talking about sleeping with very young people, and Moist Critical is like struggling to come up with arguments about like for it. It's so crazy.
Right. Across the world, 18, I want to see, like, why do you think 18 is the age of consent?
Because that right now is the one that makes the most sense. I guess to piggyback off what you're saying, so if you're traveling right now, if you go to Europe, are you going to be comfortable like hooking up with a 16-year-old? Like just because it's legal there, would that make you feel comfortable?
No, I don't hook up anymore. I'm not
saying that you do, but I'm saying if you were, single and looking for someone, would you feel comfortable with it being a 16-year-old if it's in Europe versus US?
I wouldn't do that. Like I would not have sex before. I think sex like out of wedlock altogether is something that we should not encourage anymore. And having the age of consent, having that idea encourages people to have premarital sex, right? Just that term, age of consent, means you're consenting to something that we shouldn't be doing. So no, I wouldn't feel comfortable doing that.
Okay, so then instead of let's take it away from like premarital sex. Would you feel comfortable marrying a 16-year-old? Like, would you meet a 16-year-old with romantic intent if you're in Europe and maybe marry a 16-year-old?
I wouldn't.
Nothing sexual.
I probably wouldn't personally, because I don't think that I'd be on the same mental playing field. I like to have intellectual conversations. I like to be with women that are around my same age, because then I can have conversations. I like to relate to them. I think there'd be too much of a gap. But other people, like if they're able to get along, then I don't see why that's so much of a problem.
But why don't you see that as a problem? So for you, you're recognizing like this person's much younger than me. It is a kid. Like you are talking to.
Okay, so let's define these terms.
Let's in high school.
Before we even get into, let's define these terms before we even get into this conversation. What is a child?
I would use the age of consent. Under 18 would be a kid in my eyes.
So a 17-year-old who's 364 days, that's a kid?
Yep, I'm gonna use very hard set terms. If it is under 18, even if it's 17, 364, that's still a kid.
That's a kid. Okay,
I think it's important to have these hard lines in the sand where it doesn't have this kind of wiggle room.
Okay, why does that define kid?
As I said earlier, at 18, at that point, you're going out of high school, you're going to college, you're living on your own, you're no longer, a child under your parents' roof, for the most part, extenuating circumstances, of course, but at that age, you are starting to become independent. You are no longer just in your parents' household a kid. You are now going off into the world on your own.
You do admit that varies for most people. Right? A lot of people don't move out of their parents' homes until they're 25, 26, 27. A lot of people don't.
There's nothing wrong with that.
A lot of people graduate high school 16. A lot of people graduate high school 20. It's a huge variable. So to set that in stone is that this is when you're a kid and this is you're an adult, that doesn't apply to most people. So why would you define a kid and an adult if it doesn't apply to most people?
Because it needs to be defined. Otherwise, you can get into this really gray area where you, like a lot of the things you say, can be misconstrued as you wanting to have sex with a 15, 16-year-old.
Who construed that?
Guilty as charged, Sneako. That's me. Hey, I misconstrued that, man. Now, Sneako brings up the point that, 26-year-olds are able to move out of their parents' house and aren't really independent up until then, and some 16-year-olds are able to, graduate high school early, and it's really stupid because, hey, are they 18? Is that 16-year-old 18, right? Like, it doesn't matter in this situation, okay? And while I do agree that people can mature at different ages, right? Like, depending on the situation, obviously, if you are stuck alone at home with siblings and your parents are never around, and you're always in charge of your, siblings or whatever, then maybe there is a sense of maturity there, like there is a sense of responsibility there that allows the kid to grow up faster, but that isn't like that doesn't mean they're not a kid still, right? Like just because they have reason and are mature does not mean anything. It's also funny because Sneako brings up the fact that he doesn't even want to sleep with anybody who is younger than him, right? He wants to sleep with people and be married to people who are the same age as him to have intellectual conversations. And I'm surprised that Moist Critical didn't call him out on this because throughout the live stream, Sneako talks about how people mature at different ages. So Sneako, if that's the case, why is it that you don't want to date or be married to anybody younger than you? If you truly feel like people can and they are mature at those ages, then you see no issue with that, right? Like you're able to have those intellectual conversations with them by your own logic. This is your logic I'm using here.
A lot of people, because
I don't think anybody
clips that I played in the video, you were
no
saying like the age of maturity, the age of development, and then you use 16 and 17 in that clip. So for the age of marriage.
The definition of an adult is 18 years old.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty fine establishment right there. Anything under 18 would classify as a kid. I think that's important.
Okay, but you're getting that from what? From personal experience, from the government, from the law? Because that's legally in America, that's when you become an adult, correct?
Yeah, legally.
So you're following the government's definition of an adult.
I think there needs to be a definition, and that one's been around for a long time, and I think that's the one most people accept as the closest to, like, yeah, this is when you become an adult.
It actually hasn't, right? 200 years ago in the 1800s in America, the age of marriage...
Yeah, we can't live like that. We're so much more advanced than that. Why would we play by those rules? Because at that point, are you going to start arguing that we should be able to start wedding 12-year-olds? Like, is 12 too young?
That's not the point. I'm saying, you're saying that the U.S. defined adult as 18. Well, I'm saying 200 years ago, the age of marriage in America was 10 and the UK was 7. Right? So if the government decides to change it, you're saying it's 18. If the government, maybe if Kamala Harris gets elected, then the new legal age of an adult is 25. And there could be reasons to say that. They graduated college, they don't leave the house until this age. Their brains don't develop until they're 25. Your frontal cortex is not fully developed until you're 25 years old. A lot of people aren't making serious money. They're not able to live independently. A lot of things that you could use to classify an adult don't happen for the new age American until 25 years old.
All right, I've come up with a new rule, internet, all right? You're not an adult until you're old enough to have a Twitter account, okay? Until you're old enough to scroll that app confidently and not be surprised by some of the shit that happens in that app, you're not an adult. So I think maybe 25 is perfect. That's a perfect number for age of consent. Yes, dude. Kamala Harris might just have my vote because of that. I don't know. And while you're at it, making age of consent, please ban minors off of the internet. That'd be epic. Please, babe. Thanks.
So if Kamala Harris raised it to 25, would you then say that that's the new age? Would you agree with that?
I think that'd be totally understandable. Like,
right,
I think that's fine.
So then does that make anybody who sleeps with an under 25-year-old, does that now make them a pedophile?
No, I don't think necessarily that makes them a retroactive pedophile.
So then what's a pedophile?
But it's an accepted definition of 18 for a long time. Is
not for that long. Not for that long, and not through most states, and not through most countries across the world.
Do you see why this is like a weird take to have though? Like I don't think you're coming at this from a place of you wanting to fuck a 15-year-old, are you? Like, to go back to that question, is 12 too young? Do you think 12 is too young?
I think 12 is too young for me. Yes.
Well, for you, do you think 12 is too young in general? I feel like that should be an easy answer.
12 is too young in general, correct? Because, okay. Yes.
And I don't think you're coming at this from that angle.
But what you're saying, your definition of adult is not even the actual definition. Do you know what the definition of child is? Like, anybody watching this can Google it. You can Google it too. The definition of child is somebody who has not reached puberty yet. That's the definition.
Yeah, and then you get into like the abibophile or whatever as opposed to pedophile, and those are all.
Like, I don't know. I have no idea what those terms are. I don't know what that is, but I'm saying that's the actual definition. When somebody reaches maturity, it's based off of biological and physical maturity.
Okay. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it varies for everybody. Adulthood is not something that you can set in stone because it's different for the entire world. Right? I moved out when I was 14. A lot of people don't move out until they're 25. I went through puberty when I was 17. A lot of people went through puberty when they were 13, 14, 15. It changes for everybody. So for you to say that this is the set in stone age and say you're a pedophile if it's under 18, and then if you're over 18, you're fine. Well, then that's a weird line that doesn't make sense. So you're going to say this person is a terrible person if they're 17 years old, 364 days, and right after that, they're good to go. Well, it changes for everybody.
What? No, it doesn't. Everybody turns 18, man. It's not like you're 13 one day and 26 the other. You're not skipping numbers with age.
Right now, what you're saying is kind of what NAMBLA used to say, if you're familiar with NAMBLA.
I have no idea what this is.
NAMBLA was the North American Man-Boy Lover Association. They
were
because
these people want to have sex to take advantage, and they don't abide by the rules of marriage. They don't have any sort of morality. They just want to have. I'm arguing for this because I believe in marriage. Sex should only be within wedlock.
Oh, guys, we misunderstood Sneako. He wants to marry a minor and then have sex with him. That makes sense. Okay. We got it all wrong, Chad. Everything's okay now. I mean, as long as you marry them, there's nothing wrong with it. No, but seriously, what Sneako is saying here is basically just doing something illegal, but like with being married attached to it, right? Like, you're just marrying them before you have sex with them. Like, that's just weird, man. That is so weird, dude. Like, I don't understand how that could come out of his mouth and nothing nothing, no alarm bells were ringing there. You guys get the point. Basically, you know, Sneako believes that the age of consent doesn't really exist, but I want to skip forward to one part that a lot of the internet is having issue with Moist Critical at.
I don't want to miss this line of questions. Are you good? Can you turn the camera on and off? Oh no, you're good. You're good. Okay.
Wait. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, you're good. If somebody can have, okay, do you believe that somebody can go through hormone therapy? Can they change their gender if they're a child?
I think that's totally fine as long as everyone is consenting, as you agree with.
Okay, so as long as everyone...
If your parents are okay with it and you are okay with it, I think that's totally a familial decision to make, yeah.
Okay, so a child can cut their penis off and take hormone blockers and change their biology forever, but they can't get married?
Well, that's a decision that now extends beyond the family, because now you're bringing in a different party. So if you have someone that's your age coming in saying, I want to marry that child, I don't think that can happen under any circumstance.
So,
no.
But it's still a personal decision. You're still deciding.
Because there's
take the other party out of the equation.
It's
a personal decision. If I'm 16 and I personally want to marry this girl, she's beautiful. She's 21 years old. Her family wants to do it. My family wants to do it. You're saying I can't do that. We're both consenting. I'm ready to go. I'm physically mature, but I'm not allowed to marry because Moist says that woman's a pedophile. But if then the next day I leave it, I'm depressed, I want to cut my penis off, I can go right into the clinic, snip it off, and start taking HRT like Chris Tyson. That's a society that makes sense to you?
It is.
That's right, guys. Moist Critical is getting canceled on the internet because of his opinions on trans matters. He believes kids are able to transition, as long as parents are consenting and the kid themselves are consenting, which, I mean, I really don't have an opinion on. I just don't care, nor am I educated enough to care, right? Like, it just doesn't matter to me. I'm unaware of how many cases of that actually happen. Maybe there's more than I think, but in my mind, it's pretty rare that kids are wanting to transition. I really don't even think that their mind is even there at that point. I still like to think kids are kind of addicted to video games and coloring books and whatever. But yeah, with that said, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think. I don't want to see any homophobic stuff down there, transphobic stuff down there. I am an ally, chat. I'm an ally, okay? I do not agree with homophobia, transphobia, or any of those other phobias out there, all right? Feel free to tell me how wrong I am. Is Sneako in the right? I don't think he is. I'll probably get mad at you if you agree with Sneako here. I don't really think he's necessarily in the right. But if you have that opinion, whatever. You're a weirdo, but I mean that's just what it is. With that said, strive to be better people every single day. I'll see you all in the next one.